Chronic migraine is 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more.
Botox, onabotulinum toxin A, prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine. It's not for adults with migraine with 14 or fewer headache days a month. It prevents, on average, 8 to 9 headache days a month versus 6 to 7 for placebo.
Prescription Botox is injected by your doctor. Effects of Botox may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions, neck and injection site pain, fatigue, and headache. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, including ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Ask your doctor and visit BotoxChronicMigraine.com or call 1-800-44-BOTOX to learn more.
Hey, it's Austin James. If you're like me, trying to live your best life while living with diabetes, you can relate to worrying if you're doing a good job managing your diabetes. I use the Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor to get real-time glucose readings and see the impact of every meal and activity to make better decisions. The Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor can help me live life with diabetes on my own terms, and it gives me more time for the things I love, like being a dad and a musician. Now this is progress. Learn more at freestylelibre.us.
For prescription only. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us.
Being a marketer's no sweat. You just have to manage dozens of channels, launch hundreds of campaigns, score thousands of leads, and okay, fine, it's a lot of sweat. Unless you have HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools to help you do all that and more. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
And welcome back once again to the Skating Penguin Network, everyone. It's Robbie, joined by Snail, who is across the country in Seattle. And we're just going to dive right into this here real quick because I was out of town this weekend. The only thing I saw were scores from the Penguins game on Friday and Saturday. We will start with Friday night, and it was the Penguins. For the first time after a 4-game winning streak, they do drop their first in the month of December, and their first in 5 games with a 4-2 loss to the New York Rangers. At this point, the Penguins were coming, or at least the Rangers were coming off a bit of a shock to the system with the trading of Captain Jonathan Trouba, but they rebound. They get a 4-2 win, and I was following along as best I could, and Snell, you can kind of fill in the gaps here, but it seemed like the Penguins and Rangers went back and forth for the most part of this game. It just ended with the Rangers coming out on top with the victory.
Yeah, so I thought it was a pretty competitive game, but then, Nedeljkovic, I thought wasn't super sharp. The defense wasn't really helping him out at times much in front of him. Letang was kind of having one of those games again where, he's known for his good offense, but sometimes the defense, decision-making at times led to some breakdowns, but, when you got Panarin scoring twice in a game, like Panarin, well-placed shots. Riley Smith, I really, really hated that he scored. I really hated that he got on the board against the Penguins, but he was sniffing all night. He was around it. I was really hoping that the Penguins could kind of kick the Rangers while they were down after that, like you said, that the big move had just happened, I think, like that day, with Trouba getting moved out, which was that's like they'll probably make a documentary about that someday because of just how dramatic it was. And then, Vincent Trocheck gets on the board. The usual suspects for the New York Rangers, but Philip Tomasino scored again. Blake Lizotte scored. He kicked off the scoring, and then which was sick. And he's got 5. I think he's got 6 on the year now. Tomasino, he scores again. Robbie, like Tomasino is paying the trade that I didn't see being a needle mover is paying off.
So from what I saw, Phil Tomasino did bring the score even about midway through the third period here. I guess he did not play on Saturday then. From what I heard, he has a day-to-day injury, but this is being recorded on Monday, and he was at practice today in a non-contact jersey, but it sounds like it is just a day-to-day. They're going to manage it the best they can.
Well, he got hurt like right after he scored. Like he scored and then like got knocked over after the puck went in, and like his celebration, he was laboring and he was talking to the trainer a little bit. It almost looked like he hit his head, like he fell and he maybe got bonked his head. But
okay. Well, hopefully that is a very if it is a concussion, it's minor though. I guess it's good that he's on the ice 2 days later.
Yeah, that is a good sign.
It doesn't seem like it would be a head injury if that were the case. It could have been a precaution. Maybe if they were off on a Saturday and didn't play until Tuesday, or they played Sunday, it could have been a different story. But just looking at the scoring here, Blake Lizotte, I mean, hopefully that dude just stays healthy. Is really all the Penguins can hope for. He scores about every which way, it seems like. They gave up what really bothered me, I think, looking at the box score, was that when they scored, they let the Rangers answer right back quickly.
Was something minute and a half.
That was something we haven't seen all that much this year, mostly because the Penguins haven't been in a position to score that much, or they were fighting back. But something that has plagued them over the years is just they score, they get the momentum, and then they hand it right back. The Panarin goal to answer the Lizotte goal was a minute and 10 seconds later. The Riley Smith eventual game winner was a minute and a half later. That is the kind of stuff that can ding you, especially in a game where a Rangers team that you're going to be tight with. The Rangers are struggling. The Penguins had a chance to put the foot on the throat a little bit. Again, it's tough to end a team season now, but you kind of gave them a breath of life. But I'm really more concerned about the Penguins here at this point right now. Just showing good habits, and it still seems like, from what I saw, that there were some bad moments in this game, but overall they hung with the Rangers well. They didn't exactly fold when times got hard. I think that the Rangers on paper are still a better team. Now, emotionally or mentally, however you want to put it, probably not as good as the Penguins right now, which is really saying something about the Penguins can be a basket case in themselves. The Rangers obviously are dealing with a lot, but I think it's they were. It's not like they were never going to lose again. They were riding really high. This was the first road. Oh no, they did play, but this was, a very rare road game. This was only the third road game since November 15th. They had been very good at home, but they just seemed like, hey, it's one of those games you don't get it done. You just kind of sweep it under the rug. And it seems like they, not to jump too far from this game, Snow, do you have anything to wrap up this Rangers game before we move forward to the Saturday game?
No, other than, Shesterkin was good. Sometimes the Penguins have been able to solve Shesterkin, oddly. They've been able to put goals up on him historically, but the Penguins will be seeing Igor Shesterkin for the next 8 years. He's making 11.5 balloons a year.
Yeah. They I did see that they got that contract done on Saturday. He got the Lundqvist cap hit, basically, or the cap hit percentage of something like that. Mm-hmm. He got paid. I was suspect that he was ever going to leave the Rangers. These things usually work themselves out unless feelings are hurt beyond repair. But
you can't just let go of Igor Shesterkin much as I hate the guy. But
that solves a massive problem for the next 8 years for the Rangers, they're hoping.
Yep.
Obviously no guarantees, but now it's on the front office to build a team around him. And as great as he is, they haven't been able to put all the pieces around him. And it sounds like they're still in the process of figuring things out. So we'll see how it goes moving forward here now that Jacob Trouba is gone and Igor Shesterkin is signed long-term.
God, the Rangers, they went from Richter to Lundqvist to Shesterkin. That's like 30 40 years of just like good goaltending.
Yeah. I mean, you can't. I mean, some teams just kind of have that knack, I guess, of finding the right player at the right time. But yeah, so we'll see what happens with this going forward. You have to think that he's just entering his prime. He's already the best, if not the best, in the game. So yeah, we'll see going forward what happens here and what they can do to build around him.
Yes, indeed. And the Penguins, they have a kind of a rich history of goaltenders as well, not to the caliber of the Rangers, but um, Tristan Jarry gets the start against the Maple Leafs at home after just 24 hours after the loss to the Rangers. And Robbie, Jarry's back, I think.
So yeah, again, I did not see any of this game, just some highlights the next day, but it certainly seems like Tristan Jarry has, at least momentarily, got the train back on the tracks. And if the Penguins were going to do anything, it had to start with the goaltending.
Yep.
And the goaltending is just, again, the Penguins' offense has not been the problem. Defensively, it's another issue. Yes, I understand that. But goaltending, it is what killed them the past 2 years in the long run. It's what's killed them in the playoffs with Tristan Jarry. But right now, it seems like he has put together a string of good games, and you're seeing it in the results on the ice for the Penguins. Toronto is one of the best teams in hockey, flat out. You can't say they played the night before because the Penguins played the night before. And the Penguins went out, and it was a tight game through 2 periods. But in the 3rd period, Michael Bunting haunts his former team, gets the game winner, the eventual game winner. Blake Lizotte, Chris Letang both get empty net goals. And really, the Penguins, even with that 3-2 lead, that 1-goal lead, it seemed like they shut everything down. They seemed like they played Mike Sullivan hockey. They closed the door because Toronto's a team that can come in waves. And they got the goal scorers. Austin Matthews scored almost 70 last year. Marner, Nylander, Nyes. They have a murderer's row of goal scorers, and the Penguins go hold on to that 1-0 lead, get the empty netters, and I'm fine with taking a split in this weekend series. Mm-hmm. I'm fine with going 2-1 on the week. I said last when we recorded our mailbag last week that I thought they needed a 2-1 week to get through this last bit of truly monstrous schedule, and they go out and do it. And that is, I think, the best sign that we've seen from the Penguins in a long time is shake off that loss against the Rangers, come home, and knock off one of the best teams in hockey in emphatic fashion.
Well, they played up to their potential. I think defensively, there was Graves was back in the lineup, which he'd been a healthy scratch for a number of games now. I don't know exactly how many, but Ryan Graves was playing kind of like a little bit desperately, and but it paid off for him. I thought he was playing really well, clearing the net. I mean, using that big frame. Tomasino was out for that game. I was a little shocked to see that. But they had Puljujarvi back in the lineup, which I don't know why. Puljujarvi, every game he seems to play well. Like, maybe I'm not. I don't know. I feel like I'm watching the same game that's happening at ice level that Sullivan and those guys are seeing, but they kind of do this couple games in, few games out, and I loved his game against the Maple Leafs. He was fast, really, really, really hard on pucks. He was kind of playing like a disruptor role. Like, you know, he wasn't, they weren't really like looking for him to like score, it seemed, but he was playing well defensively, closing gaps quickly, kind of just like breaking up plays that were happening in the Penguins' own zone. I don't know what the deal is there with him. I do try to remember he's also coming, you know, he's a year removed from like a very severe double hip resurfacing surgery. Maybe he just doesn't have the wheels to play every single day. But from what I've seen from this year, and Robbie, I think you'd agree too, Jesse Puljujarvi has been a really good Penguin.
Yeah, Absolutely, and it's good to see him back in the lineup, getting a shot. I know that it had to come at the expense of Phil Tomasino, but we'll see how they handle that once Tomasino is healthy again. Ryan Graves was back in the lineup. Owen Pickering was on the first pairing. It didn't seem like he did anything catastrophic with
he looked good.
18 minutes of ice time. He was on the penalty kill a little bit too as well, but I got to say, your guy, Ricky Raquel.
Yep.
He's now at 11. Dude is just, I mean, a completely different hockey player this season.
He is a different player this season, and he's healthy, which is it's showing. And he's tenacious. He's playing. He looks like he's fired up out there to score goals, and that's the guy that they traded for at the deadline a few years ago. And I'm glad to see him contributing. He had an assist on that in the game as well. Dude, the power play is actually an asset to them this year. And they mixed up the power plays on this, Robbie. They have Gino and Sid split between the two. Sid was on the second unit.
Yeah.
A little bit more of a blue-collar looking power play out there. They moved Hazy to the first unit, which I thought was a nice move because I've been saying it, Robbie. He's not a fourth-line player. Like he doesn't put up the points and goals of, an elite top-end goal scorer historically, but when he was in New York, and not when he went to Winnipeg for at the trade deadline, but when he was in Philadelphia as well, he was like a power play guy. And this year he's been mostly on the fourth line, but he's getting a look on the power play, and I like what he brings to it. He's got that size, he's got hands. I've said it before, he's kind of like playing the role that Brian Boyle did that year that the Penguins signed him. Gave him a PTO, but he's like Brian Boyle's role, but he's more skilled and has better hands. So I like what they're doing with the power play right now, keeping it fresh and mixing it up so that they don't get lulled into this what plagued them last year. I think just this predictability and all of that. I like what's going on with it. So yeah, the Leafs game. Oh my God, I was elated. I watched that whole game tip to tail, and there is nothing better than a hockey night in Canada win over the Maple Leafs, served hot and fresh by Sidney Crosby and the boys. So, that's all I really got on this game. But that was a good one to watch. I'm bummed you missed it.
So yeah, the Penguins bounce back, get this 5-2 win on Saturday. They get to 12-13-4. They're 8-6-2 at home. And it kind of sets up nicely for this week. The schedule lightens up a little bit between here and Christmas now. They, by the time you listen to this, it will be at least Tuesday, meaning they'll be ready to host the Avalanche, who are just battered and injured and clinging to a wild card spot at the moment. The Canadians, who are the Canadians, the Ottawa Senators, who I said it preseason, you got to at some point prove it to me, and so far they are not doing that. And then the Kings, Predators, Devils, and Flyers heading into Christmas. So if we're just looking at this week, the schedule is much more, I want to say, or at least less daunting, at least on paper. Still got to go out and win the games, but they start tonight against Colorado, Montreal, and Ottawa the rest of the week. So something to look forward to, hopefully some more points to bank. And kind of get things turned around as we head into the new year here. So with that said, we are now going to segue into the mailbag section. We have a few questions here from Brian to get to this week. So Brian, thank you once again for chiming in. And if you're a listener and want to ask questions, if we're doing a mailbag episode, you can find us at Penguins FFSN on Twitter or X, whichever you call it. The mailbag tweet usually goes out on Sunday, and you can drop your questions there. So we'll switch it up this week. I'll give you the first one, okay. Snail. So Brian asked, we talked about Marcus Pettersson for Nils Hoglander last week. If it's a 1-for-1, Brian said he's not doing it, but Hoglander and Lekkerimäki for Pettersson and a draft pick or two, I'm doing that. So what do we? Oh, and then he said 2 for 2. A second to this question. However, I've seen rumors about Hoglander for Drew O'Connor. Would hate to see O'Connor go, but he's not building on the season he had last year. Plus, that opens up Pedersen for a potentially bigger trade.
Ooh, boy, that's kind of a spicy meatball. I agree with Brian in the sense that if it's a 1-for-1 Pedersen for Hoglander, I'm not doing that because, dude, trade deadline come around, no matter what, even if you're in a playoff spot, trade deadline come around, he's a stay-at-home good first pass defenseman. Like he will fetch not like a blockbuster trade type like, but it'll be good. Like you'll get a good return, and I'm not doing it 1-for-1. Lekkerimäki, can't speak to him. Don't really know what. He's not a prospect that's really ever been on my radar. They got another guy over there in Vancouver that maybe I'd sniff around at. I think when we were talking about, must have been at the trade deadline maybe last year. We maybe were looking through some of what they got in the cupboard, but geez, yeah, I need more than just Hoglander for Pedersen. And what was the other part of the question there? There was a second part, right?
It was about Pedersen or Hoglander for Drew O'Connor.
Oh, there it is. Oh, dude, yeah, I'm not getting rid of Drew O'Connor. I don't care if he hasn't scored in 25 games. Drew Connor is my guy, other than Rickard Rakell. And he's so impactful. Like he's a good penalty killer, and you can't give up. This is where, Robbie, the Penguins, I'm going to say it again. I'm going to get on my soapbox. The Penguins haven't been in a position to let some of their players struggle and figure it out, like their younger players. Like this is something that has not been afforded to some of the younger players in the system because it's been win now mode for so long. Drew O'Connor, we rant and rave about him for his, good two-way play. He has flashes of a great offense. At the beginning of the year, we were like, put him on the power play because he has such a wicked shot. I'm not giving up on Drew O'Connor yet. This is a guy I have a feeling if you get Drew O'Connor into the playoffs, I bet you he might be like, he gets compared to Brian Rust. Sullivan's compared him to Rust. What does Rust do in the playoff? Perform, show up, clutch. I'm not getting rid of Drew O'Connor. I'm holding on to him. I don't care if he could fetch you something at the trade deadline, adding him onto a Pedersen trade or something like that. If I'm the Penguins, I'm stingy with my young players because right now Dubas has come out and said he's looking for good young players that he can plug into this roster and play and give opportunities to. Drew O'Connor does not fit the mold of what they're trying to give away right now. If anything, I'd bump Drew O'Connor's in a slump. I'd bump him up onto Sid's line. Just say, here you go, Drew. Go to work with Sid. That's where I'm at with it. But yeah, Pedersen I think could get you a good return, and Hoglander is just a little bit. If this was an NHL game, EA Sports NHL, and you're doing the trade, the bar for Pedersen is far too big as far as value compared to the Hoglander bar. So where are you at with it, Robbie?
Yeah, it's very interesting that we're still talking about this. It seems like it's maybe stalled a little bit. Josh Yohe has said that definitely Hoglander is on the radar. He is the type of player the Penguins would normally target. He plays well. He would fit well in their system. But as for actual conversations on the topic, not much. It doesn't seem like there's much more than smoke there at the moment. So we'll have to wait and see. I understand that Drew O'Connor's not scoring like we thought he would, but he still brings something to this team. I think that you can definitely get a ransom for Pedersen if the deal's right. But if you're making it a 1-for-1 for Pedersen for Hoglander, I'm probably not thrilled about it. But if you throw in a little bit more on the Canucks side, maybe I feel a little bit better about it. I love Marcus Pedersen, though it definitely seems like Owen Pickering might be ready to slide into that role here sooner rather than later. And then you have the young guys like Brunnicke, who is going to be an impact player at the NHL level in the next year or so as well. So Pedersen definitely looks like he's more expendable than he was 2 years ago, but I'm not really thrilled about just doing a one for one straight up for a guy like Hoglander.
I'm looking at the Canucks roster right now, and this Pettersson thing, this will pick up steam as the season goes along, no matter where the Penguins are at in the standings. But you got to be careful what you wish for, because right now, if you're looking at the Vancouver Canucks D-core, they've got the Golden Goose in Quinn Hughes, and he's got his his D partner in Philip Roenick. And then after that, you've got Derek Forbert, who's 6'2" left shot. He's 32 years old. You've got Carson Soucy, who's 6'5", 30 years old, left shot. If you're plugging in Pettersson, don't be shocked if Vancouver is saying you got to take one of these veteran D-men back with their cap hit. So, with the current way that the NHL is set up, money in, money has to come out. You know what I'm trying to say, Robbie? Like it's not. They're going to be trying to shed some cap to be able to fit Pettersson in. He doesn't have a monstrous cap hit, but they're tight to the cap in Vancouver as well. So. You know who I might actually take 1-for-1 in this, and I don't even want a D-man back, would be Connor Garland. Give me Connor Garland for Pettersson, and I'd sign off on that one.
Yeah, Garland's another name that's been mixed with the Penguins in the past, so
since he was in Arizona.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah. But anyways, Robbie, let's move on here from that question. I could talk potential trades all day. Let's talk about the goalie. We were just talking about Jari when he was playing against the Leafs. There, had a good game. Brian says that he thinks that people should give Jari a little bit of praise. That we are, as fans, are very hard and critical of him. But there's been some crucial parts of this. He's been crucial for certain parts of this turnaround that the Penguins are on. If he can get to his all-star form and maintain it in playoffs. Brian thinks that's on the table for the Jari that we're seeing right now. So where are we at, Brian, Robbie, with Jari?
Yeah, he absolutely deserves praise. It's a small sample size. We need to see it continue, and the playoffs. The playoffs could be a possibility. Absolutely, getting there has never been a problem necessarily with Jari. It's once he's there, he's known to fall apart a bit. But the way the season started, the fact that he's playing like this now for even this small stretch of games, feels kind of like a bit of just a miracle almost. The way, he gave up his first two shots of the season he faced were in the back of the net. He's spent a stint in the American Hockey League. He's been all over the place. Rumors abound about him being traded for the better part of a year now. But he has shown what we've seen before these last few games. He is a former All-Star. He's playing at that level right now. Fingers crossed it continues, because without that, I don't see the playoffs as a realistic possibility. But if he keeps playing like this and everything else kind of comes around as well, the playoffs are absolutely a possibility. It's still a long hike, a lot of hockey left to be played, but the way he's playing now, absolutely give him praise, give him his flowers, because he has been one of their most important players during this 5 wins in 6 games streak here that's kind of brought them back into the picture a little bit. So absolutely, Tristan Jarry has been fantastic. And here's to hoping he can keep that up going forward, because they are certainly going to need the All-Star Tristan Jarry if they want to make a push the rest of the season.
Agreed. I'm the most critical of Jari, I think, out of us here on the pod, and it's been bad this year. Robbie, there was no guarantee that Jari was going to go get his game together, because it was bad.
It was dreadful. Bad, awful. Like, as in, we thought about just straight up waiving him.
Yeah,
just dreadful. Just bad. It's bad. Like, worst goaltender in the league. Bad, basically.
Yeah, and even when he came back, he really. There were still games that the Penguins, I think, would win that he lets in the first goal. Like the first shot on goal. I think there was some stat, the first 3 shots on goal, no matter what the outcome of the game ended up being, Jari was letting it in. So, yeah, I'll be the first to put my hand up and say that the only reason that the Penguins have won, 5 out of 6 is because Jari has regained his form somewhat, I think that he has a higher ceiling than what he's shown us recently. Jari at times has been unreal. like unreal at times in his career. But yeah, I'll put my hand up, like I said, and say he's been great for the Penguins.
Agreed. Again, another one here from obviously Brian. Do you think if Grzelcyk hadn't been signed, which I think we all can agree he shouldn't have, does Harrison Bruneke make this roster?
A little shrapnel for Grzelcyk.
Yeah.
No, I don't, because you got a guy named Chris Letang and a guy named Erik Karlsson that are moving the puck and offensive-minded enough. And Bruneke, they need to be patient with these players, I think, these young guys. And he was lighting it up for his WHL team before he actually, I think he fractured his wrist or, he hurt his wrist or something. That's why he's going to miss World Juniors for Team Canada. Shout out. He was nominated to the team, but can't because of injury. No, they were gonna send him back down. But man, if Grzelcyk wasn't on this team and you were looking maybe at a Pickering or Bruneke, dude, that might be a nasty duo in the future. Pickering Bruneke. But
yeah, absolutely.
That might be the future first pairing, deep pairing for the Penguins. No, he wasn't going to get a shot, I don't think. His camp was so strong, though. He was forcing their hand in camp this year. You remember that, Robbie?
Oh yeah, I mean we thought he was going to get the 9 games test trial, but he was absolutely pushing for a roster spot. There's no doubt about that.
God, the Grzelcyk shrapnel I think is kind of deserved. He's, I've said it, I think he's a bit undersized for a defenseman that you're asking to kind of play a more steady stay-at-home game, and he's not very fast. And when you mix those two together with the type of hockey the Penguins play, it's just kind of a recipe for disaster at times. But he's also looked good at times too. He's not Ryan Graves or anything like that right now in the eyes of Penguins fans. So where do you think, Rob? You got any input on what would have had to have happened for Bruneke to get the 9 games even for this club, coming out of camp? Would the Penguins would have had to have been further in their whole rebuild type thing, or what? Or was there just no way
for him to skip his 9 games?
No, for Bruneke to make this roster out of camp.
It probably would have taken a 2-week injury, maybe.
Okay. Maybe Karlsson, and remember he had an injury?
If Karlsson would not have been ready for the season, when he battled that injury in the preseason, I definitely think you could have seen Bruneke then, but it was clear Karlsson was ready to come back, and that kind of shut the door on him getting that shot, because you just weren't going to just not play him, and who do you cut out of the roster? So yeah, I think it would have taken I won't say a long-term injury, but a 2-week injury to give him that shot and go from there then.
Feel your max with Brooks Running and the all-new Ghost Max 2. They're the shoes you deserve, designed to streamline your stride and help protect your body. Treat yourself to feel-good landings on an ultra-high stack of super comfy nitrogen-infused cushion that takes the edge off every step, every day. The Brooks Ghost Max 2. Technically, they're a form of self-care. Brooks, let's run there. Head to brooksrunning.com to learn more.
Is it time to reimagine your future? The right business skills may make a difference in your career. At Capella University, we offer a relevant education that's designed to focus on what you need to know in the business world. We'll teach professional skills to help you pursue your goals, like business management, strategic planning, and effective communication. And you can apply these skills right away. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
Blinds.com Cyber Monday Last Chance is happening now. Don't miss out on up to 45% off site-wide. A Blinds.com design expert can help you make the perfect selection on your schedule. We can handle everything from measure to your whole home installed for one low cost. With over 25 million windows covered, Blinds.com is the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings. Save up to 45% site-wide, plus a free professional measure right now at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
You're muted.
I was just mumbling. I wouldn't have been surprised if he would have got a shot had Carlson not been ready for the season. All right, let's fire up a question here. This is a good one. A lot of noise about this in recent weeks, but how are you feeling, Robbie, about this Four Nations roster? Brian chimes in that he loves the USA squad. The only thing he'd do is sub Tage for Nelson or Kreider. He's talking about Tage Thompson.
Yeah, the Tage Thompson one definitely took me by a bit of surprise. I do wonder a little bit if this isn't a test run for the Olympics in 2026. Again, a lot can change between now and then. Overall, the roster, I think, is probably the best the United States has probably ever put on the ice outside of maybe 98 if you look at some of the players on there that eventually went to the Hall of Fame. Brock Nelson, I'm completely fine with. I think he's earned that spot. Chris Kreider, I'm not shocked at all on that list because he's a guy that in a short tournament can just get red hot. If I'm leaving someone off, it pains me to say it, but it might be Vinny Trocheck in this situation. I really think I would have tried to find a way to get Tage Thompson on this team, but the United States is now kind of running into a Team Canada type situation where you have all this talent and you only have so many spots. And it sucks you have to leave people at home, but that is the nature of this kind of tournament, these kind of rosters. And I do wonder how much of it is a test run for 2026. Not saying they're not going to go out there and try to win it, but if this roster goes out and dominates, wins the tournament, you know kind of what you're working with going into the Olympics and the following winter. So, I think overall the roster, there's not really much to complain about. We can nitpick who should be on it, who should be left off. Kreider didn't surprise me in the least bit. I think there's a chance that Kreider is probably wearing a letter on his chest in this tournament. I think Matthew Tkachuk is the captain. The team is just stacked. I mean, your goaltenders alone are Jake Ottinger, Connor Hellebuck, and I can't even remember who the third guy is off the top of my head. But
Swayman.
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy Swayman, your third string goaltender. I mean, Hellebuck's
an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah, I mean, Hellebuck is obviously your one. Ottinger and Swayman can battle for two. It's a short tournament. You're only guaranteed 3 games, I believe. So, you just got to go out and play. And it's going to be a test for these guys. A lot of these guys have never played together with some of the other ones because the World Championships, famously, you have guys not playing. The season's long. They take time off. So, we're going to get a good look at a lot of these guys playing together for the first time. We're going to get the Hellebuck in goal. And then from the other perspectives, Canada, I don't think there was much surprise with Canada's roster. The guys you expected to be there are there. As for Sweden, I think they made a mistake in not taking Rickard Rakell. And I'm being a homer in that. Obviously, you can call me that. But I just
didn't take Rickard?
No, Rakell did not make the team.
Wow.
Obviously, if somebody gets hurt and they need to fill in, he would probably be the top of the list. He's the Penguins' leading scorer. He has 11 goals this year. He's on pace for
the third leading goal scorer, Swedish goal scorer in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what goes into that exactly. Unfortunately, he did not make the at least this initial roster. You never know what happens if somebody goes down, but Rickard Rakell did not make it. I think it's going to be a great tournament because I think all 4 teams have the capability to win this tournament. Finland has won a world championship recently. They, I believe, won gold in 2022 at the Winter Olympics. Sweden, Canada, the United States are always going to be there. I think it's just a nice appetizer for what to expect next year in a slightly larger field in the Olympics. So, I mean, overall, I like what the United States put together. It's just the embarrassment of riches now falls on you. Hard decisions have to be made. And unfortunately, some people are going to be left home. But they'll have another year to earn their spot, and you never know what happens. in a calendar year.
I was just going to chirp you for never having any love for your Pittsburgh native hockey players, saying you'd snub Trocheck off the list for Tage Thompson. But as I'm looking at this list, I'd have to say it's either him or Brock Nelson. But man, could you imagine that power play if you had? I mean, the power play is going to be sick no matter what. I can't wait to watch a power play in this tournament, no matter what nation it is getting the power play. But you might have on the left side Tage Thompson, but you're not. You're going to have Jack Eichel, and then you're going to have, or Brock Besser. Or is Besser on this list? Oh, Besser didn't make the U.S. team. That's weird. Okay. You could have Jack Eichel, and then on his opposite side, you could have Matthews, and then you could have JT Miller down low. And then on the power play, you're going to have, God, take your pick, but Quinn Hughes and throw a right shot. Adam Fox. I don't know. How are they going to have enough puck to go around for this tournament?
Absolutely. 100% agree. I mean, Canada's made it work. So, yeah, I mean, it's not impossible. And hopefully these guys understand that, and they put on a show here in about roughly 2 months now. So I'm looking forward to it. The rosters kind of got the hype going, I think. I understand that people wanted an expanded field, but for what it is, I think we'll get a World Cup of Hockey, like a full World Cup of Hockey here after the Olympics, a year or two after the Olympics. So this is kind of I think a test run more than anything, but should be fun.
I'm going to add on to that question that Brian asked, and I'm going to add on and ask you, where are you at with the NHL? Because this isn't an IIHF event. This is an NHL sanctioned event.
It is.
So the rules are different when it comes to just how the whole operation is run, and a lot of that is not really relevant to us as fans. But this is the NHL. They're not doing the All-Star game this year, so this will be in place of the All-Star game and the skills competition. Players that aren't on this list are booking their vacations and trips like they would if they weren't going to the All-Star game. So where are you at with the NHL having this instead of the All-Star activities?
Absolutely. Do
Big
this.
win?
Oh, massive win. Do this in let's do. You have the Olympics every 4 years. Do a World Cup of Hockey so Olympics in 26, World Cup of Hockey in 28, a full World Cup of Hockey. Those 2 intermediate years, do a 4 nations type face-off. Maybe make it 6 teams, 2 groups of 3, round robin it. All 3 advance to the next round, except the top 2 teams get buys.
Yep, like that.
And then host it in, I think it's Montreal and Canada this year, or Montreal and Boston, right?
Yeah.
So let's go Toronto, Pittsburgh, or Toronto, Buffalo. They're right next to each other. Both high hockey markets. Go to
Seattle, Vancouver.
Let's do Pittsburgh and Quebec.
There you go.
Yeah, let's mix it. Two different cities host. Minnesota and heck, you can double up with Calgary and Edmonton even. If you're gonna
Winnipeg.
Or Winnipeg. Their rink's not huge. I've been the newer buildings are in Calgary and Winnipeg.
True.
Obviously Minnesota, maybe Minnesota and Winnipeg, or Minnesota and
Chicago.
Chicago would be a hotbed to do it. Detroit would be a hotbed to do it. Move that tournament around. And the World Cup of Hockey you can spread out over multiple cities, in multiple weeks.
Yeah, I like that. I think the NHL, they should listen to you, Robbie, because man, that would be, you could have cities bid on All-Star Week. Which would be the 4 nations face-off. You could have teams bid to bring it to their cities. And dude, All-Star is already a cash grab. Like, imagine this
would be an absolute cash grab. Let's be honest, what it is. These rosters are All-Star teams to begin with.
Yeah,
and really, they're probably more deserving than a lot of the players that will end up going to an All-Star game anyway, because they all try to get representatives from every team, and that's fair as well. But Yeah, have it in these big cities. Make it your all-star event. You're gonna rake in the cash.
You
know
got
you're gonna
four
rake.
jerseys. People will be buying these jerseys.
Yeah, 4 like country jerseys too, not like East, West, Pacific stuff like that. You'll have actual because people are gonna Canadians will buy the Canada stuff. The Americans will buy anything that says USA on it. Have the cool designs. Expand it to 6, 8 teams. Get Germany. Get the I think the Czechs absolutely deserve a spot in this. I don't know how. What's that? Yeah, I mean, I think it's time that maybe get over that a little bit. Get them back in the picture. Get the Slovaks in the picture, and then even have a wild card team or something like that, like one at your Norway or Denmark or somebody's playing for a spot somewhere. Use it for the world rankings or the end. However, the world championships ended the year before, they get the final spot or something like that.
Yeah,
but
lots of
I
options.
Do this on the opposing years of the Olympics and the World Cup of hockey. That's your all-star event. Let's let these superstars represent their country and shine for the fans, because people will show up.
They will, and I think that, speaking of showing up, I think some of these players will give you more of an entertainment in a show if they're playing for their country, as opposed to not getting to go on vacation for that 2 weeks or whatever, or that week off that the players get, and then sometimes the All-Star the game has been a dud for a long time, and I'm with you, big win for the league and for fans.
All right, I'm gonna give you one more here, then you give me one more from Brian here.
Let's do it.
He said, "Do you think?" Or no, hold on. I'll go. Rachel Dorier wrote an article for ESPN about how the Penguins can rebuild. One thing she said in the article that I'd like to get the opinion on. There's an argument to be made that the Penguins have been the most consistently successful team in the Cap era. Do you agree with that?
Well, in the Cap era, I don't know if they've been the most successful. And he said Detroit right here, didn't he?
Detroit or us, he said.
I think that Detroit probably has, but no, they don't have 3 cups in the Cap era, do they?
The only other team that has 3 cups are Chicago, but the Penguins have the longest playoff streak in that era. They have the most cups, most playoff appearances, I believe the most playoff wins. I would lean toward yes. Detroit in the Cap era they have 1 cup, and they haven't made the playoffs for 8 or 9 years now. So I think it's actually closer to Chicago and Pittsburgh than it is Pittsburgh and Chicago. Or Detroit.
Yeah, and it's, this is one of those weird things because I immediately was starting to lean Detroit. And I know that hockey is very popular in Pittsburgh. I would never say it. It means something to the city. But hockey in Detroit, I think, is probably bigger than it is in Pittsburgh. I think that just the history that the Red Wings have, I mean, you got Gordie Howe, you've got Yzerman, and you've got the Russian players and all. It was just such a destination for so long prior to the Cap era that just even like I was saying, I immediately was like, well, Detroit. But when you the question is phrased in the Cap era, yeah, I think it's got to be between Chicago and Pittsburgh, and it's close because both teams, oddly enough, they've taken 2 different paths as far as outcomes of dynasties, and they're both very in kind of in similar spots, and their playoff. The Chicago's ended a little bit sooner than the Penguins, I believe. Their playoff woes, correct? They made the playoffs last technically in the bubble.
Yes.
So prior to that, that's 2018-19, 2019-20. Penguins made the playoffs after that. So I think you could argue that it is the Penguins.
Yeah, I think safely that is the correct guess. I think it's close with Chicago, but if you're looking at like playoff wins and the playoff streak, I think it is because the Penguins were technically winning, making the playoffs and winning before Chicago. Chicago was obviously really good, but the Penguins were still winning before Chicago tapered off, or still winning after Chicago tapered off as well. So yeah they're kind of in the same place now. Actually, the Penguins are probably Chicago's still a disaster, but the Penguins are probably still in a better position now. Obviously, the Penguins don't have a Bedard at their disposal right now, but I think overall the Penguins are still the most successful. And if you look at like straight up wins, I think the Penguins probably have more too, like regular season.
I'd agree. What about this, Robbie? What in 10 years from now, in 2034, 2035, who do you think will be the most successful team in the Cap era by that point? Give it another decade.
Another decade.
That's hard to predict, but looking at where maybe the league's at now as your compass, do you think
Vegas.
that it could? You think Vegas? Because I mean, I guess they've been competitive since the
Vegas is in that discussion. Another team that's in that discussion that I think is going to be very quickly is Florida. And I think never doubt Julian Breezewa. I think he'll have Tampa. It might take a little bit of time, but I think he'll have Tampa back in that conversation as well.
Yeah, they're another one that you could add to the list because of their recent success with the back-to-back cups, going to 3 straight Stanley Cup finals. They went to 1 in 2015. I think that no matter much to, and it's not their fault. It's not Tampa's fault, but those cups that they won, they're not going to have an asterisk, but they're going to be remembered as the COVID cups. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah, I understand, but at the end of the day, their name is etched on there. I actually thought we would be talking about Colorado, but I'm not. They're just the vibes, I guess.
They got old quick, it seemed.
They did. They're just battered. They can't stay healthy. And McKinnon's still a freak. Makar's a freak. Makar might be the most decorated defenseman by the time 2034 rolls around.
I think so, yeah.
No doubt about that. But yeah, it just seems like they're just missing something. But what I will say, by the time 2034 rolls around, I think we might be talking about 36 NHL teams.
Oh God, yeah, that's not a conversation I'm ready for.
Yeah, that's not really a conversation I think we should have. But unfortunately,
right.
I think we will be having that conversation at some point. As muddled down, that's just gonna make it. That's that's another whole podcast episode in its own. So I'm not gonna get too into it, but it's definitely a conversation I feel like we'll be having in the next 10 years.
You're absolutely right. In 10 years, there's going to be a couple more expansion teams. And yeah, I think it's going to water down the league. I think we're going to be like, you're going to be, there's not enough superstars to go around to make it that competitive at that many teams. But where do you think the next expansion goes? Just quickly before we switch over here to another question, like, do you think they're going south of the border, of the American-Canadian border, or are they going north?
I honestly think that the way things ended in Arizona, I think they're going to look there first. Again, the arena situation's still a mess there. I think that if we're talking 4 expansion teams in the next 10 years, I think a minimum 3 will be in the United States.
I wouldn't.
I would not be shocked if all 4 in the United States.
I know, with the way Bettman operates, I would not be shocked either if it's.
I would not be shocked if there's 4 in the United States. Let's say 3 in the United States, 1 in Arizona, 1 in Houston, and 1 in Portland.
Portland's a good one. I was wondering if they'd ever go back to not Hartford specifically, but another New England area pro team.
I could maybe see them doing something like a centralized type of New England situation. Maybe
Baltimore?
It's hard. What?
Baltimore?
I don't know what that corridor is already so packed with hockey teams. Just between and then going up into New York. I don't know what the appetite in Baltimore is. Again, you have to kind of judge what the appetite of these places is too. Baltimore would have the infrastructure to do it, more so than we'll call it a New England hockey club.
Yeah, New England hockey.
As much as I don't want them to do this because I think it's a dumb idea. Is a second Toronto team.
I know.
I would rather not watch hockey than have to deal with Canada talking about another Toronto team.
I couldn't either with that. They have enough. They do enough with just one.
Maybe
team.
a Milwaukee.
Oh, Milwaukee. Yeah, that's a good one. Milwaukee.
Maybe a Milwaukee is in there. It just hit me there because they're kind of in that northern Midwest where you have St. Louis and Detroit and Chicago. A natural rivalry with Chicago, obviously. A Cleveland. They already have they have the infrastructure there. Obviously, they have an AHL team. Kansas City might be revisited at some point.
Yeah, I know they want hockey there too.
So obviously you're kind of running out of space then. But Portland, again, a name that it could be thrown out there as well as if they want to keep going west is San Diego. But I don't know what the situation is with already 3 California teams if they'd want to expand it.
Too many anyway.
Okay, yeah, conversation for another time, another podcast. But yeah, in the 10 years, I think we're talking more expansion.
I wouldn't be shocked. You know what I would like to see more is AHL expansion, because if they keep expanding NHL teams,
they're going to have
have to make more AHL teams. And I really wouldn't mind. I like minor hockey. I love AA, AAA. As a sports fan, my whole life, I've always liked the lower levels.
Put a team in Tacoma.
Put a team in Tacoma right there with the Rainiers. I wouldn't.
How far is what's the other? What is it? Salem's Oregon.
Yeah.
Isn't there another city on the way down that's?
Well, there's Seattle, but then there's Everett, and that's north of us, and south of us is Olympia and Tacoma. Tacoma and then Olympia.
Doesn't Everett have a junior team?
Yeah, they got the Silver Tips there.
That's what I thought. Okay.
I wouldn't mind more hockey in the
I
state.
mean, put a team in Tacoma. I guess the Thunderbirds are still doing good, even with an NHL footprint now in Seattle.
Yep.
You don't have to wreck teams that are already there by expanding your professional footprint, obviously. So
no, the more the merrier.
Yeah.
I'm sure people would argue that, but that's just how I feel.
Yeah.
All right, let's do one more, Robbie. This one's for you, and I think that you're probably more fit to answer this than I. Do you think that Mario, and he's talking about the magnificent one, Mario Lemieux, not being a majority owner anymore and selling to FSG is partly to blame for the struggles these past couple of seasons? And Brian adds here that yes, FSG is all about winning, but the NHL is a new venture for them, so they have to learn all the ins and outs themselves.
So I'm going to say it's a lot of things that are to blame for this. A lot of it starts with Ron Hextall, who was hired by Mario. I think Jim Rutherford is at part fault for just dropping that bomb one day. He woke up and decided that he was stepping down, blindsiding kind of everyone, basically. FSG, I think when they took over, being all new, were trying to survey the scene and see what was going on. I don't believe you hire Kyle Dubas if you're not serious about winning. Again, many mistakes were made, but they've kind of let Dubas have full reign to develop his front office, his hockey ops, and all that. So I think it's a concurrency of a bunch of things. It is a lot on Ron Hextall for just being bad at his job. I think that's just simply he's just bad at his job. He's not good. And the Penguins are still digging themselves out of that. The panic buy on Jari, even, again, we gave him praise earlier, but that contract's still probably not good in the long run. But the drafting has been good by Dubas. for the most part. That you can see the signs of what they're trying to do. He was able to get Crosby still under contract. The roster this year is, we've talked about, is better overall than it has been the past few years. Absolutely. So, yeah, I don't think it's Mario's fault. I think a lot of it's just Ron Hextall and maybe a part of it's FSG for not just canning him as soon as they took over. Going back to the whole, I have an idea, but it's all in my head nonsense. They should have just canned him in 2022 after that season, or 20 whatever year. They gave him one more year. They should have just canned him, been done with it. Even if Dubas wasn't available, okay, you still don't know if he's coming available the next year, so they wrote it out one more year. Should have just canned him and started fresh. I think that was probably the biggest mistake, but that is a two-tier decision between old ownership and new ownership. So I think there's plenty of blame to go around. You can't blame Mario. Mario, like, dude, I mean, he saved the franchise so many times. You can't really put any blame there whatsoever. So I think it's just a mixture of bad decision-making from different parties, an untimely resignation by a former general manager, and then the hiring of a general manager and keeping of a general manager who was just straight up incompetent.
Yeah, Robbie, I really liked what you said about, it's not Mario leaving. Of course, you probably wish, I'd feel a little more comfortable knowing that Mario's the owner still, and it's not this kind of faceless group of guys that have their hands in a bunch of other stuff as well. And I like what you said though about, sometimes I think there isn't enough blame put on Jim Rutherford for up and leaving the Penguins because he, Mario maybe blocked a trade or something. I think he was getting a little stir crazy and was trying to trade a core piece or something. He got shut down, and he said, if I can't have, autonomy over this roster, then I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I mean, Robbie, they had Jason Botterill, they had Bill Guerin in the pipeline as GMs. Jason Botterill, say what you will, but Bill Guerin, like, he was in Pittsburgh, he won with Pittsburgh, he wanted to be in Pittsburgh. I thought the bag was fumbled, as they say, when they let Bill Guerin go, and they weren't necessarily looking at him to be, like, there could have been something done there, I think, with I don't want to say like grooming, but like, Bill Guerin was at a certain date going to take over this team as a GM. I just don't understand why that wasn't more of a conversation. I mean, I think as long as Jim Rutherford was alive and breathing, he was going to be the GM. But there should have been a plan in place if Jim Rutherford wasn't the GM, and you had some great guys that could do the job in-house, and then you end up getting stuck with Hextall and Berkey, who at the time I didn't mind Berkey.
I didn't hate it. I have to own that. I was excited for Hextall and Burke. Yeah. Obviously, wish I wasn't, but I have to own that now because I was.
I was excited too, and it, that's where some of the woes started. And then when Hextall, got canned eventually, I think that if they were more prepared for if Jim Rutherford was ever not the GM, I don't think you'd have Dubas as a GM right now. But like you said, Dubas is doing a good job, and Dubas's job was hard coming in. I don't think people in media and who cover the Penguins give him, I don't want to say you need to give him a long leash or anything, but like, I don't think they understand he's trying to do something that has rarely been done in the NHL, and that's keep a team from totally bottoming out, but still build a contender and get younger. It's an insane job that he's taken on here. But Robbie, I think that I agree with you. It's not Mario leaving, but do you ever miss Mario being at the games and being?
Yeah, I mean, he is the Penguins. Like, he is still the face of the franchise in a way. I mean, him and Crosby kind of share that role, but like Mario, again, for my generation at least, it all comes back to Mario. For the younger ones, it all comes back to Crosby. And hopefully for the next generation, there's a face to all come back to. But like for me, yeah, like it sucks not being able to pan to the booth and see Mario hanging out there. But he deserved to sell the team, get his dough, and breathe easy and not have to worry about the daily ins and outs of being involved anymore. He's done more than this fan base could ever ask for. So yeah.
Well, Robbie, I think that we can wrap up the mailbag portion. Something that we haven't done, and I'm going to make this quick because this pod is reaching the hour mark, and I think for those that are interested, and Robbie, for you as well, a little update on some of our baby penguins in the system. Let's start with the bad first. Just looking through the roster and where things are at. Jack St. Ivany, he's played a couple games. He's a -3 and hasn't contributed on the score sheet other than that.
He's actually out long term now.
Oh, he is out long term.
Yep. So he will be. Yeah, don't expect him back in Pittsburgh anytime soon. They said he was week to week.
Oh boy. Okay, that's not good. Well, maybe that. Did they say what kind of injury was it?
Undisclosed.
Undisclosed. Oh boy. Okay. Moving on from that, our boy. Boris Kachuk is up to 7 goals on the year.
I did see that he had another goal explosion. He's like the ultimate hot and cold player, it seems like. He scores 4, doesn't score for like a month, and then just explodes for 3 more. So the ultimate hot and cold player is Boris Kachuk. And
he's actually learned to pass the puck a bit. He's got 4 assists. So,
wow.
Yeah, Boris Kachuk, stonks are rising. Tristan Brose, he's got 7 goals, 7 assists on the year for 14 points in 19 games. When do we see Tristan Brose make his NHL debut at this rate?
He's playing very good. You have to think that if a guy goes down, he's got to be on the short list of call-ups. So hopefully here, maybe, again, you never pray for an injury, but if an injury could happen at any time. So I could say by the new year, but you don't know how that all plays out. But he's playing excellent hockey this season. Down in the farm, so hopefully that keeps up and he's ready to go when the time beckons.
Ville Koivunen, 4 goals, 10 assists for 14 points in 19 games. You gotta wonder if he's on that short list of call-ups as well. Ponomarev, he's played only 10 games. He's up to 7 points with 4 goals, 3 assists, pretty good. Rutger McGroarty's added a couple more assists to his stats down there in Wilkes-Barre, and he's at 6 assists, 2 goals, 8 points. He's a -5 though. Rutger McGroarty might need to be left in the oven a bit longer. And Robbie, I think we've touched on him before. I wouldn't mind if you burned a year. Just keep him down there. Just let him get pro reps, and he's got to learn the pro game. He's coming right out of college. Not what we were hoping for. I think we could collectively say that we'd like to see. I was hoping he'd be in the NHL, but.
I'm fine with a slow burn for this season because this season's not an all-in season, obviously. So hopefully they can continue that rebuild, and he's a big part of maybe making a stronger push next season and going forward.
Joel Blomqvist has started now that Tristan Jarry has left, and Blomqvist has been down there. He's got 5 games under his belt, and I believe he is 3-2 on the year.
That's
so
fine.
Good to see him getting some reps. Sergei Murashov's had 2 starts. I think he actually had spent some time in Wheeling as well, down in the East Coast Hockey League. So, so we got some prospects that are doing some things. Emil Benstrom's got 6 goals, 13 assists on the year. He's over a point a game on the year. You got to wonder if he might be one of those tweener guys, not good enough for the NHL to keep his job and too good for the AHL. But yeah, I like to keep tabs on these guys because these are going to be players that, they're a part of the plan. They're a part of the Dubas plan for the future. And, you're going to be seeing these guys, if there's injury call-ups, like you said, there's a short list of names that are going to, they'll get the call up and see some NHL action. Where are we at with quickly before we totally move on here and kind of close up the podcast? But we talk about that short list of people that get called up, dude. Where are we at with Sam Poulin?
It's done.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, if you have to package him in a trade, whatever. Phil Tomasino's been a Penguin for 4 games. They were drafted the same year, just a few picks apart, and he's had a bigger impact on the Penguins in 4 games than Poulin has in 5 years now. It's
True.
over. Yeah, it's just it's not gonna happen. Yeah, it's bust. Again, but getting picked that late in the first round is usually a lottery ticket anyway. You always hope for the best, but nah, it's pull the rug out, and maybe he is a Tomasino type that a better a change of scenery type guy.
Yeah.
You move and see if you can get some draft capital back. But no, for me, it's time over. If they're calling anybody up next, I'd rather see, like you said, a Tristan Brose or Ville Koivunen rather than Sam Poulin.
Or maybe Boris Kachuk.
Or King Boris.
Yeah.
Our buddy King Boris. That's what we're gonna. Our buddy King Boris. Give him a 2-way contract and get him into the NHL.
I'd like to see him PP1
just for a game, just to see what happens.
Well, that's my little update for the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. I think they're having a pretty good year this year, and there were times, Robbie, where this team, the Penguins, were so bad that we were debating becoming a Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins podcast, but we did not pull the trigger on that. But I think it's worth mentioning that some of these new acquisitions and prospects, they're coming along quite nicely down there.
Absolutely. So, yeah, that will put a cap on this episode. Later this week, we have 3 games to recap on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. So we will have those starting tomorrow night when they take on, or Tuesday night, probably later tonight when you're listening to this, when they take on the Colorado Avalanche. And then we'll plan out from there, maybe another mailbag next week as well. So, Snell, if you have nothing else, I'm going to wrap this up. He says no. So thank you guys for listening. I will talk to you later in the week.